Good morning, guys. So I'm currently on break giving the SAT, but I wanted to jump on really quick and make a small little video going over today's notes. So yesterday we talked about persuasive speaking, persuasive communication, the idea of using our words to persuade people. We established that there are three different types of audiences. There are friendly audiences, hostile audiences, and apathetic audiences. Hostile will be negative, friendly will be positive, and then apathetic is they don't have enough emotional energy to care, so they're at neutral, right? So what we're going to get into today is more along the lines of how persuasion usually works. So we talked about how if you have a hostile audience, you want to change their behavior. If you have a friendly audience, you want to reinforce that behavior. And if you have a apathetic audience, you want to create that behavior. And then we also kind of talked about different types of speeches, speeches that get you to act, so speeches to actuate. And we talked about propositions of fact, propositions of value, and propositions of policy. These are all different speeches that will change your attitudes. So we're going to kind of get into a little bit more detail as we talk about actual persuasive speaking. So there's a couple of persuasive strategies, and if you are a sophomore right now, you've probably seen these words more than you care to remember. And if it's been a while, as a reminder, there are three basic rhetorical appeals that were invented by Aristotle, and that's the appeals based on logic, logos, using yourself as your own credible source. So, like, if you're a scientist and you're saying, well, this is true, and I know because I'm a scientist, you're not using logic, you're using your own credibility. So that would be ethos. And then appeals based on emotion, that's pathos, and that's probably the most powerful appeal. People will act out of fear. People will act out of compassion. People will act out of anger, which I think that we have seen in the last year specifically. So again, all of these are very, very powerful ways to persuade people. I'm not going to say that any of them are necessarily weaker than the other ones, but I do think that pathos is probably the strongest type of appeal that you can get. That's why all of those ASPCA commercials will play really sad music, along with the pictures of the sad-looking dogs and cats. One major thing that we really talk about in this unit is the elaboration likelihood model. So the elaboration likelihood model states or posits that when a persuader presents information to an audience, a level of elaboration results. So remember that elaboration is the idea of expanding your thinking. Elaboration refers to the amount of effort an audience member has to use in order to process and evaluate a message, remember it, and then accept or reject it. So commercials usually have a really, really low level of elaboration, right? Because it's just like, here's the thing, this is what it does, here's what it costs, go buy it. But sometimes you might have to make a deeper decision about that, such as if you're listening to a politician speak. As such, they either experience high or low elaboration, and whichever of these will determine whether they use the central or peripheral root processing. So the central peripheral root, that's kind of like the section of our brain that uses most of our brain power, and if we don't have to actually think about it, then it's going to take the peripheral side. But let's go ahead and look at the actual model. So as you can see, it starts with the initial communication, and then we go to attention and comprehension. So if we don't have to really think about what is being persuaded to us because it's something that we already kind of agree with or it already is kind of in line with our values, it doesn't really have a lot of processing. We don't have to think about it a lot, right? So if you're at, a football game and they're saying, when I say Warriors, you say fight, Warriors fight, you don't have to really think about that, right? So it goes into the low involvement processing. And so where's my little elaboration tool, annotation? I can't even annotate. It's fine. It's fine. I think I can figure it out though. I got it. I got it. Okay, let's get rid of that. Never mind. Okay. forget this for a second. All right. Where is me? Nope. This is going to be funny for all the students that actually watch this and see this completely fall apart in the next 5 seconds. Okay, I'm back. All right. So I will just kind of draw with my mouse. So the communication comes to you, you pay attention, you comprehend it. If it goes in the low involvement processing, it takes the peripheral route, right? So it leads to your belief change, your behavior change, and then your attitude will change, right? So in the case of this, it's asking you to do something. Hey, stand up, sit down, chant. And so you're going to do the behavior, and then after that, you might think, huh, yeah, that made sense. And then your attitude will possibly change, right? So that's because it has low involvement processing. You don't have to really think about it. If you have a high involvement processing, like you go to a TED Talk, you go to a political rally, you go to something along the lines of that, you're going to have high involvement processing. That means your brain's going to be working harder to really try to think about what's happening because it's testing your cognitive response. So cognition is literally the idea of thinking. Anytime you see the word cognitive, think thinking. So you are thinking about what is being said. So you're having the central route, the high involvement processing. This will usually lead to a belief and an attitude change, and then that will change to your behavior. Okay, so think about, like, maybe you go to a speech about health, or a speech about patriotism, or a speech about getting your grades up. You will have a cognitive response thinking about that. It will change a belief and an attitude, and then you are more likely to change your behavior based off of that. Okay, so if something doesn't, you don't really have to think about it, then you'll change your behavior before you change your attitude. But if you do think about it, you will probably have your attitude change, and then your behavior will change. And I know that that doesn't really make a lot of sense because most time we think about what we're going to do before we do it. But there are a lot of things that we do without even really thinking about it, and that's what low involvement processing is. That's how it takes the peripheral route. If it takes a lot more thinking, then it takes the high involvement. So we have the central route and the peripheral route. The audience scrutinizes the message's contents because of a high motivation level. Users will focus on the message's strengths. They'll also be more likely to focus and ignore distractions as they seek their goals. Okay. So again, if you're really into what you are hearing, then you are more likely to take the central route because you're going to try to, with your brain, break apart all the things that you're hearing, and you're going to figure out the persuasion if the persuasion is persuasive or not. For the peripheral route, the user is not scrutinizing the message for its effectiveness. As such, other factors can influence him or her, including distractions. For example, someone wanting a new laptop that's good but cheap is more likely to process by the peripheral route. So you're not really going to think about the processing power, the graphics speed, or the graphics chip, or I don't know a lot about computers, but essentially you're like, I want something that's good and cheap. And then you see a commercial, hey, good, cheap laptop. Cool, I'll go do that, right? So today's main point of the notes is all about if it takes low processing power or high processing power. In the case of this, a low processing power, the peripheral route, is just not you really thinking about what you need and being persuaded very quickly. And the central route is something you really, really thinking about, like how you're going to vote or what classes you're going to take next year, because those are things you're consciously trying to really, really think about. And that's actually it for the notes. So if that all made sense, I hope that it did make sense. We are going to come back tomorrow and we'll do a no pressure quiz over this. I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you're enjoying this day off from Zoom. I know that it always is very helpful for you guys to have a little bit of time to yourself. If you're taking the SAT right now, good luck. I know that you're doing great. I need to go back and check on those kids. But other than that, guys, I hope you have a great Tuesday. Take care of yourselves, get some work done, and I will see you tomorrow. Peace.